What's going on, everyone? It's Adrian from Draft Time. In this video, I'm going to give you my top value picks, my top studs, and my top sleepers for tonight, which is November 8th, 2019. We have an 11-game slate tonight, some big games around the NBA. And at the end of the video, I'm actually going to give you our top lineups that are generated by using our lineup optimizer, which you can access on drafttime.com. And you can sign up for a free 7-day trial if you want to try it before you buy it. And cancel anytime before the 7 days are done, and you won't be charged if you're no longer interested in it. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into my top. Oh yeah, first of all, before I get into any of that, I want to show you the lineup from last night. This is the default lineup from FanDuel last night. Put up 332.8 points. LaMarcus Aldridge was a huge pickup. Ended up tripling up in the GPPs on FanDuel. And the previous night, the night before, if you use the default lineup, it ended up like winning 5 times or 6 times over. So that was a big night as well. Now it was winning even more than that until the very end of the Clippers Bucks game. Giannis in like the last 5 seconds got like a block, a rebound, and like a free throw, and that dropped that, and the game was done, and it ended up dropping us from like 9x to I think it ended up being like 5x or something like that. But still a good night. And last night we also had a good night in DraftKings. Ended up putting up 291.5 despite Terry Rozier not doing anything. Pretty good night overall. Ended up doubling up in the GPPs in this one. Actually won the quintuple ups and the triple ups as well. If you do those, this default lineup would have won. So overall, these default lineups, and when I say default lineup, I just mean lineups that are generated by using the lineup optimizer, the top default lineup without locking in any players, and using the default settings and the default projections. That's what I mean by default lineup. So yeah, it's been doing pretty well. But anyways, let's go ahead and let's get into my value picks for tonight. So my first value pick is going to be Raul Neto getting the start for Ben Simmons. In his last game, he ended up playing 30 minutes with the injury to Ben Simmons. He should get the start tonight. So he is going to be highly owned. He's just $3,400 on DraftKings and $3,700 on FanDuel. So you definitely got to own him because he has way too much value, especially since he's getting the start. We have him projected to score 21.82 on DraftKings and 21.19 on FanDuel. My second value pick is going to be Rodney Hood, going up against the Brooklyn Nets tonight at home. Now, he's $3,600 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's $4,500. So this is more of a value pick for DraftKings. We have him projected to score 21.45 fantasy points on DraftKings. Now, I know he only scored 14.5 fantasy points last night, but he still played 30 minutes. He's averaging in the 20s as far as fantasy points. He's had a couple of 30-plus fantasy point games this season, so he's definitely capable of it. And with that matchup against the Nets, which should be a high scoring matchup, I think it's a very good value pick. And my third and final value pick is going to be CJ McCollum. He's $6,000 on DraftKings, so he's pretty well priced on DraftKings. And then he's $6,400 on FanDuel. We project him to score 34.72 on DraftKings and then 33.6 on FanDuel. Same reason as Rodney Hood. This is going to be, or is at least projected to be, a high-scoring game. The Nets have gotten into some shootouts this season. You know what CJ McCollum is capable of. I don't have to sit here and explain this. He's already had a 50-plus point fantasy game this season. He's extremely underpriced for a player of his caliber, so he's a pretty good value pick tonight. So now let me go ahead and let's get into my top studs for tonight. So my top stud is going to be Karl Anthony Towns, going up against the Warriors tonight, the G League Warriors. He's $10,300 on DraftKings and he's $11,500 on FanDuel. We have him projected to score 59.24 on DraftKings and 56.97 on FanDuel. This is another game that's projected to be high scoring. The over-under is 231.5 points this game. He's going to be going up against Omari Spellman, Marquise Chris, Willie Cauley-Stein, who really can't guard him out on the perimeter. I don't see any of those guys being able to guard Karl Anthony Towns tonight. Now, I know that this game might have some blowout potential, but if you look at the Warriors game, last game, they played the Rockets, and they actually kept it close enough to where James Harden played a good portion of the fourth quarter and ended up putting up like 70-plus fantasy points. So, Karl Anthony Towns, that's my top stud for tonight. My next top stud is going to be Jokic. And I don't even know if you could call him a stud anymore because they lowered his price significantly. But I think part of that reason is why I like him so much. He's $8,500 on DraftKings, and he's also $8,500 on FanDuel. We have a projected score of 46.42 on DraftKings and 44.56 on FanDuel. He's a triple-double threat for DraftKings. He can get you that bonus for a triple-double. He hasn't been himself this season. One of the main reasons is that he's been in foul trouble a bunch of these games this season. He's actually averaging under 30 minutes a game. And even with that, he's still averaging 37.3 fantasy points per game. He's had a 61.8 fantasy point game already this season, so he's capable of doing that. But even if you just look at his per 36 minutes, he's averaging 46 fantasy points per 36 minutes. So I think he's a very good value play at 8,500 with stud potential. So with that being said, let me give you my dark horse for tonight, and that's going to be Al-Farouq Aminu. He's $3,400 on DraftKings, and he's $3,700 on FanDuel, and we have him projected to score 18.12 on DraftKings and 18.05 on FanDuel. So he's averaging in the mid-20 as far as minutes per game. He only played 14.4 minutes last game, but part of the reason why is that the starters all played a ton of minutes, and Jonathan Isaac had that huge monster game. But the Magic, they don't have a whole lot of depth at power forward, and he has huge upside potential because he can easily hit 10x value if he gets 30-plus fantasy points, which he's capable of. He's already done it this season. He's had a 34-point game earlier in the season. I expect him to get in the mid-20 as far as minutes go. There's some downside risk there just because of the last game that he played. He played a poor game. But because of that very reason, he's going to be low-owned. So he's definitely a dark horse. So anyways, those are my top studs, sleepers, and value picks for tonight. Now I'm going to go ahead and give you our top lineups that are generated by using the lineup optimizer. And it's only 12:56 p.m. right now, so this might change before tip-off. Although there's not a whole lot of pending injuries out there. You got Miles Turner, who's questionable. If he misses, though, all those guys on the Pacers are kind of overpriced. So even if he misses the game, I don't see a lot of potential there. So let me go ahead and run the DraftKings default lineup. And we got Raul Neto, who I talked about, Trae Young, Bradley Beal, Rodney Hood, who I also talked about, Evan Fournier, DeAndre Hunter, Hassan Whiteside, and then you got Karl Anthony Towns, who I also talked about. So that's the DraftKings default lineup. Now let's go ahead and run the FanDuel default lineup. And here we got Raul Neto again. You got De'Aaron Fox, Evan Fournier, Bradley Beal, Troy Brown, Jarrett Culver, Julius Randle, Anthony Davis, and Nikola Jokic. And in my previous video, I gave you my top sleepers, value picks, and studs. And I was pretty spot on as far as my value picks. It wasn't from last night. It was from Wednesday night. And if you go back and watch it, you'll see that I had my top value picks. It was Jarrett Culver, who hit a huge value. He was priced in the 3,000, and he scored like 32 fantasy points or something like that. I also had Markieff Morris, who came off a pretty bad game, but I said you still want to stick with him, and he was priced in the low 4,000s, and he ended up scoring like 35 or so. And then my other value pick was Lou Williams. I can't take much credit for Lou Williams because everyone was all over Lou Williams with Kawhi Leonard being out, but he ended up being a huge value pick, put up like 50 plus points. So anyways, let me know what you guys think, and good luck tonight.